Cal Room, Boxing Talk.
What's up, y'all? It's J. Calderon, Stand Clear Entertainment, and we're about to get into this week's Boxing Talk. Over the past weekend, it was a big night of boxing. First, from the UK, IBO super middleweight champion Chris Eubank Jr. took on former world champion King Arthur Abraham. This was a fight that was a one-sided affair by Chris Eubank, dominating from the beginning of this fight to the end of this fight. It was a good performance by Chris Eubank. He was the quicker man in there against the slower and older Abraham. You know, Chris Eubank was able to get on the inside and unload his combinations and land a beautiful uppercut against Abraham's high guard. It was a dominant performance by Chris Eubank that just controlled the tempo of this fight and was able to control distance against Arthur Abraham, who couldn't get off some shots. You know, a lot of people were expecting this fight to be a mismatch, and it definitely was. You know, Arthur Abraham is way past his prime. He hasn't looked good in a very long time, but Chris Eubank now will move ahead to the World Boxing Super Series tournament in the 168-pound division. And it's a big tournament. They get to fight for the Muhammad Ali trophy and a multi-million-dollar purse. And also, I believe there are 2 world titles at stake in that tournament. And you have the domestic rivalry between George Groves and Callum Smith that are going to be in the tournament, because those are good, stiff competitions for Eubank. And we're going to see if he is British boxing's new star from the UK, because Chris Eubank has the name because of his father, but we have to see if he's the real deal. Now, moving along to the United States, we had on HBO a triple header. First, it was in the light heavyweight division when we had Joe Smith, a knockout puncher, against the Cuban outstanding amateur fighter and Sullivan Barrera, who is top 5, one of the best light heavyweights at 175 pounds. Now, this fight on paper was supposed to be a fireworks type of fight, a knockout performance by one of these fighters. And in the beginning of this fight, we saw Joe Smith land that beautiful power shot on the forehead of Sullivan Barrera, and Barrera went down. He was hurt, but he was able to collect himself and get right back into this fight. And from the second round on, he basically took over this fight and won round after round with his superior boxing skills, because Sullivan Barrera, like I said, was the better technical fighter with his boxing skills. He was landing some quick combinations, landing that beautiful jab, and also working the body of Joe Smith. Joe Smith didn't have no answers in this fight. It looked like he didn't have a plan B once he couldn't knock out Sullivan Barrera. And he got pretty exposed in this fight because Joe Smith doesn't have fundamental boxing skills. This guy really didn't know how to set up his jab, to set up his other punches and land those powerful shots that he needed to land to try to take out Sullivan Barrera. Barrera was on his game. He looked very good in this fight, very impressive. I had him winning 9 rounds to 1. Now, this was a 10-round fight, and the promoters had changed at the last minute from a 12-round to a 10-round. For whatever reason, we don't know. Now, that hurt Joe Smith because he lost 2 extra rounds to try to pull out a knockout victory in this fight with his punching power. Sullivan Barrera now moves ahead to a possible showdown with former world champion Sergey Kovalev in a fight that might take place on HBO. They're both promoted by Main Event, and Main Event has said that they would like to put that fight together later on in the fall, and that's a great matchup. That's a matchup where I know some people are doubting Kovalev right now because of the 2 losses that he's had against Andre Ward. Andre Ward is just on another level. He beat Sullivan Barrera quite easily, and we've seen since that loss, Sullivan Barrera has turned his career back around and has gotten back into contention for a world title shot. But nobody is beating Andre Ward at this weight class. You know, a matchup between Barrera and Kovalev is a very intriguing matchup between skillful fighters with punching power, and I would love to see that fight. You know, let's hope that this fight is definitely made in a year that has been awesome for boxing fans, because it's been one great fight after another. Now, on that card, we saw the U.S. debut of WBA junior lightweight champion in Giselle Corrales. Now, Giselle Corrales came into this fight against a Mexican warrior in Robinson Castanelo. This was a very good fight. It was perhaps one of the best fights of the evening. It was an action fight where we saw the challenger drop the champion twice to the canvas, and it looked like it was going to be another upset, because this veteran warrior has stopped and upset 2 named fighters in Yorkis Gamboa and Rodney Rios. but the champion came back with some very good footwork, some quick hand speed, and he was able to get off his shots as well and drop the challenger for a knockdown. Now, this fight was a very close fight. It was an action-packed fight, an extremely good fight, and it went down to the 10th round when there was an accidental headbutt, prompted the referee and the ringside doctor to stop this fight, and they went to the scorecards. Now, I felt that this fight was either a draw or a one-point decision victory for the champion, and it turned out to be a majority decision for Giselle Corrales, retaining his WBA 130-pound title, and now he moves on to a possible showdown with the main event winner of the evening, and that was WBC junior lightweight champion Miguel Berchelt, who took on former world champion Takashi Mara. This was a fight that was supposed to be Fight of the Year candidate, and it didn't turn out that way. We saw Berchelt put on a boxing clinic against the Japanese warrior, and it may be the end of Takashi, because this guy who has given us thrills and great fights in the past couldn't deal with the boxing skills of Miguel Berchelt, because he was definitely on his toes throughout the whole entire fight, using good footwork, landing those beautiful hard body shots against the former champion, and he was landing some crisp, powerful shots on Takashi, and Takashi really couldn't get off no shots. He delivered some few body shots, but he really didn't have a good night in this fight, and it was all Berchelt definitely dominating this fight for at least 11 rounds to 1. It was a boxing lesson, and we saw not only can Berchelt give us a great fight like he did against Francisco Vargas, where it was a toe-to-toe battle, power versus power for a knockout performance, but we saw that this guy could truly box and has very good skills to go into the ring against anybody in that weight division and give them a tough time. And I hope and I wish that Floyd Mayweather would make a fight with his fighter, IBF champion Gervonta Tank Davis, against Miguel Berchelt, because that would be a great unification match between both champions. It would be an excellent fight because both of these guys have very good boxing skills and both men have extraordinary punching power, and I believe that it will be a very tough task for Tank Davis, because Tank Davis hasn't fought anybody to really match him in the department. Everybody's talking about Lomachenko because he is the best and one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, but he's the top man at 130 pounds. Let's forget about Lomachenko, because none of these guys want to get into the ring with him. You know, let's focus on the other champions that are in the division, and Gervonta Tank Davis versus Miguel Berchelt is the fight to make. Now, most likely, Golden Boy is going to make the fight between the other champion, which holds the WBA, and Giselle Corrales and Miguel Berchelt. That's going to happen perhaps later on this year, and that's a good matchup. You know, both guys have good boxing skills. I was impressed by the footwork of Corrales and the hand speed. You know, this guy is very crafty, he's very skillful, but he doesn't have a lot of punching power, and I favor Berchelt in that fight, but it'll move him closer to a unification with the two titles, and maybe that would entice Floyd Mayweather to bring his young lion to fight this man. But now moving along to Fox Television Network, where we saw another light heavyweight matchup between 175-pound contenders Shaney Monahan against Marcus Browne, U.S. Olympian, who put on a demolishment against Shaney Monahan. This man was blown out in just 2 rounds. He was nowhere in the same class. Marcus Browne just took this guy out very easily, and it was a great performance by the young fighter, now looking for a big title opportunity against a guy like Adonis Stevenson. Now, Stevenson has a mandatory that's about to come up, and I think after that fight, a fight between him and Marcus Browne will be a very good matchup, because this young man has some skills and he also has some good punching power. But I don't think he could beat a guy like Adonis Stevenson. I like Adonis Stevenson. I believe he could beat Marcus Browne, but I would love to see this fight nevertheless, because it's a great opportunity for this young fighter from Staten Island, and he's earned the title shot opportunity in my book. Now, the main event of the evening was Omar Figueroa versus Robert the Ghost Guerrero. This was a return for a 19-month layoff for Omar Figueroa, and his first fight fighting at 147 pounds. And I gotta tell you, I was very impressed. At first, we saw Figueroa. He didn't look quite in shape around the waistline. And we saw Robert Guerrero, who looked strong in the first round. He was boxing. He was setting up his shots, landing the jab, looking very, very good. And I thought the Ghost was going to be on point this night and possibly pull out a victory. But in the second round, we saw Omar unload a devastating uppercut. It looked like a Mike Tyson type of uppercut that dropped Guerrero. Guerrero has never been annihilated the way he was annihilated in this fight. I mean, this guy was badly hurt, and Omar Figueroa was just unloading on some big shots, and he didn't let up. He was killing this man and dropping him 5 times to the canvas, and it was a total destruction and an end to a career. He announced his retirement shortly after this fight, and I wish him all the best. He is a 2-division world champion that won 3 world titles. He's made a lot of money throughout his career, and I wish him all the best because he's given us some very good fights in boxing. And now for Omar Figueroa, he says that he would like to return to the 140-pound weight division because he believes that's his strongest division right there in the junior welterweight class, and he wants a world title. Now, Terence Crawford is about to go into a big title unification with Julius Ondungo next month, and that's going to be a fight where they're going to hold all the world titles, all 4 belts. So if Terence Crawford decides to stay for one more fight and fight a guy like Omar Figueroa, that's going to be a very good fight, a very interesting fight for the boxing fans because that's an all-action fight. And I don't think he could beat a guy like Terence Crawford, but it's a very good fight between 2 hungry young fighters in their prime, and I would love to see that fight. More than likely, you know, Terence Crawford is going to move up to the 147 weight class, and Bob Arum is already pushing newly crowned champion WBO welterweight Jeff Horn to fight Terence Crawford instead of fighting Manny Pacquiao in a rematch. But we have to see what Manny Pacquiao does. Does he take that rematch or does he move on in his career? That will open up the door of opportunity for Omar Figueroa because those titles will become vacant and he'll get to fight one of the league contenders for a title shot and become a multiple world champion. I can't wait to see Omar Figueroa again. I wish he would stay at the 147 weight class because there's a lot of big names in that weight division and it will be a super stacked division with him involved. But his choice is to go back down, and I respect that. You know, it was a great victory win after such a long layoff. A very impressive knockout performance by Omar Figueroa. But that's my recap over the fights that took place this weekend. And I would like to thank everyone for tuning in to this boxing channel, J. Calderon Boxing Talk on YouTube. Please hit that little red subscribe button. Put your email information in so you get all my video notifications once I drop a new video. Also, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter, and also join the Facebook boxing group page, J. Calderon Boxing Talk. I'm J. Calderon, Stand Clear Entertainment. Thanks for your support. Keep watching and subscribe.